I never thought I'd be the guy who would find out his wife was cheating. I always believed we had a solid marriage. Jessica and I had been together for nearly 10 years, and our life together had been filled with laughter, love, and a fair share of challenges. We had a beautiful house, a dog named Max, and plans for the future that included kids. But somewhere along the line, things began to shift in a way I couldn't quite put my finger on. It started small. Jessica began volunteering at a local animal shelter, which I thought was a wonderful way for her to give back. She seemed passionate about it, often coming home with stories about the dogs she helped or the people she met. But soon enough, I noticed changes in her behavior. She started to come home later than usual, claiming she was caught up in meetings or helping out with special events. The late nights became more frequent, and at first I trusted her. I wanted to believe she was being genuine. But little things began to nag at me. Jessica would get defensive whenever I brought up the shelter or asked about her. Her phone was always at arm's length and she started using it in the shower, something she never did before. I'd catch her sending texts and hastily putting her phone face down when I walked into the room. It felt like the air was thick with secrets, and I was left in the dark. One night, I decided to do a little digging. I was restless and couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. So while she was out, I took a look through her phone. I found messages from someone named Tom that made my stomach drop. They were flirty, filled with innuendos and laced with inside jokes that I didn't understand. I felt sick. Did she really think I wouldn't find out? Did she think I was that oblivious? In a moment of anger and disbelief, I decided to confront her. I waited until she got home, my heart racing as I prepared for what was about to unfold. When Jessica walked through the door, I could see the surprise on her face. I wasn't sure how to start, so I just blurted it out. "Who the hell is Tom?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and hurt. For a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then her expression shifted to one of annoyance, like I was the one being unreasonable. "What are you talking about?" She shot back, rolling her eyes. I pulled out my phone and waved it in front of her. "These messages don't lie, Jessica. You're cheating on me." The denial came pouring out of her. "Oh, please, that's just a friend from the shelter. You're being ridiculous. You've always been so insecure." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was turning the tables on me, making it seem like I was the problem. "Insecure? You're the one having secret conversations behind my back." The back and forth escalated, and I felt the anger boiling inside me. She tried to make excuses about how I didn't understand her need for friendship outside our marriage. But I knew it was more than that. The way she spoke about Tom, the way she smiled at her phone, this wasn't just a friend. The emotional impact hit like a freight train. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. My mind raced with memories of our life together. All the moments that now felt tainted. I struggled to hold myself together while she continued to deflect. The woman I thought I knew was standing in front of me, and all I could see was a stranger. Eventually, the confrontation ended with her storming out, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I felt lost. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss the signs? I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. I had to figure out what to do next. Did I want to fight for my marriage, or was it time to walk away? I needed to process everything, but it felt like my world had crumbled in an instant. The betrayal was deep, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was about to change forever. The days that followed my confrontation with Jessica were a blur. I felt like I was walking through life in a fog, my mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. I went to work, but my heart wasn't in it. My colleagues noticed something was off, but every time they asked if I was okay, I simply smiled and said, "I'm fine." I wasn't fine, I was shattered. I tried to piece together the last few months, searching for clues that would explain how we ended up here. Jessica had always been a little dismissive of my concerns, brushing off my worries as insecurities. Looking back, I could see the signs more clearly now. The late nights, her defensiveness, the whispers on the phone, how had I not seen it sooner? It felt like a cruel joke she was playing on me. Then came the moment of clarity. One evening, after a particularly draining day, I decided to drive to the shelter where Jessica had been volunteering. Maybe I could confront Tom directly. I had no idea what he looked like, but I felt an overwhelming urge to expose this betrayal for what it was. As I pulled up to the shelter, I could see Jessica's car parked outside. My heart raced, and I found myself gripping the steering wheel tightly. When I walked through the entrance, the smell of dog food and the sound of excited barks welcomed me. I felt like a spy in enemy territory, my heart pounding as I made my way through the building. I passed a few volunteers who greeted me with polite smiles, but I was focused on finding Jessica. Finally, I spotted her in the back room, laughing and playfully tossing a ball for a golden retriever. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal wash over me, but I also felt a strange mix of sadness. She looked happy, and that happiness wasn't meant for me. I crept closer, my anger boiling over the more I watched her interact with the dogs. But what really sent my heart into a tailspin was when I saw Tom enter the room. He was tall, with a warm smile and an easy charm that instantly made Jessica light up. Watching them together was like watching a scene from a movie where the lead actress meets someone who truly understands her. I felt sick. My gut twisted as I stood there, invisible, witnessing the intimate connection they shared. It was in that moment that I felt a fire ignite within me. I wasn't going to be the victim here. I had a plan forming in my mind. I'd expose her lies. I'd show everyone who she really was, and I'd make sure she suffered the consequences of her betrayal. The idea of revenge felt exhilarating. I was tired of being the guy who sat back and took the punches. It was time to take control. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. I found out that Jessica and Tom had been texting and calling each other frequently, and she often lied about her whereabouts. I even had a few screenshots of their conversations that were suggestive enough to prove her infidelity. I felt like a detective in a suspense novel, piecing together the clues that would reveal the truth. As I prepared my plan, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. I wanted to confront her publicly, to expose her lies in front of our friends and family. It was a gamble, but I was ready to take the risk. I wanted to make sure everyone knew what she had done, and I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. I decided to host a small get-together at our house under the guise of a casual gathering. I called up a few close friends, people who knew us both and could help create a supportive atmosphere. But deep down, I knew what I was really doing. I was staging a revelation. The night of the gathering, I felt both nervous and empowered. Jessica arrived home glowing, blissfully unaware of my intentions. She greeted our friends, laughing and chatting as if nothing was wrong. I watched her interact, and a part of me felt a pang of love, but I quickly pushed that aside. I had to stay focused on the mission. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere was filled with laughter, but I could feel my heart racing as I prepared to unveil the truth. I waited for a moment when everyone was gathered, drinks in hand, the room buzzing with conversation. I took a deep breath, knowing that this was it. "Hey everyone," I called out, grabbing the attention of the room. "I have something important I need to share." Jessica's face turned pale, her laughter fading as she realized something was off. I could see the confusion and fear in her eyes. I pulled out my phone, ready to expose the betrayal that had shattered my world, and in that moment I felt a rush of adrenaline. No more hiding, no more pretending. The truth was about to come out. The room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop as I held up my phone, the atmosphere thick with tension. I could see Jessica's expression shift from confusion to panic as she sensed the gravity of what was about to happen. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, using the silence to my advantage. "Tonight," I began, my voice steady but filled with resolve, "I want to talk about trust, loyalty, and the truth." I glanced at Jessica, who was staring at me wide-eyed, pleading with me silently not to go on. I felt a surge of power, knowing I was about to expose her deceit. "I've discovered that my wife, Jessica, has been cheating on me with someone named Tom." Gasps filled the room, and I could see the shock on the faces of our friends. "I found messages," I continued, scrolling through the text on my phone. "Messages that reveal an affair that's been going on for months. She's been lying to me, pretending to volunteer at the shelter while she was actually spending time with him." I hit the screen, displaying a few of the more explicit messages for everyone to see. The room erupted in whispers and Jessica's face flushed bright red. "This isn't true," she shouted, her voice shaking. "You can't just air our dirty laundry like this." But I was on a roll, emboldened by the audience I had. "Oh, but it is true, Jess. You've treated me like a fool. You've made a mockery of our marriage, and it's time everyone knows who you really are." Jessica's friends looked back and forth between us, unsure how to react. Some looked at her with pity, others with shock. I could see the betrayal written on their faces as the realization hit them. My heart raced as I continued to lay it all bare. "You've been lying to all of us, pretending to be this kind-hearted woman who volunteers and loves animals," I said, my voice rising. "But behind my back, you've been having an affair. How could you do this? How could you betray me like this?" Jessica tried to defend herself, stumbling over her words. "It's not what it looks like. I was just trying to make friends. You've been so distant, distant." I shot back. "You're the one who has been pushing me away. I've tried to connect with you, but you've been too busy sneaking around with Tom." At that moment, I caught a glimpse of Tom standing awkwardly in the hallway, clearly having just entered. He looked caught between wanting to defend Jessica and knowing he had no place in this confrontation. I gestured toward him, feeling like the ultimate puppet master. "And there he is, the other man in our marriage. Let's give him a round of applause, shall we?" Laughter broke out, but it was bitter and filled with tension. Friends were shifting uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. Jessica turned to Tom, her face twisted in anger and despair. "You're not supposed to be here." "Jessica, I'm sorry," Tom said softly, glancing at me as if he were the guilty party. "I didn't know this was happening." "Of course you didn't," I said, unable to hold back my disdain. "You're just the guy who took advantage of a broken marriage." Jessica's anger boiled over. "You're ruining everything. You think this makes you look better. You're just a sad, pathetic man who can't handle the truth." But the words didn't sting as they once would have. I felt a wave of clarity washing over me. "No, Jessica, I'm a man who finally sees the truth. You've made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." After a few more tense moments, I turned to our friends. "I didn't want to drag you all into this, but I think it's important to know who you're dealing with. Jessica has been lying to all of us, and I won't stand for it anymore. I deserve better." With that, I could see the support of my friends start to shift toward me. They rallied around, offering words of comfort, shock, and disbelief. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of empowerment. I was taking control of my life, unmasking the betrayal that had haunted me for so long. As the evening went on, conversations buzzed around me, but I felt detached from it all. I had laid everything out, but what now? I hadn't considered what would happen next. It felt surreal, like I was watching my life unfold in front of me. Jessica was standing there, humiliated and angry, but I also saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. She was losing everything. As people started to leave, I could see Jessica melting into the background, her facade crumbling. I knew this wouldn't be the last time we spoke, but for now, I had exposed the truth. I had laid bare the lies and deceit that had threatened to destroy me. In that moment, I felt a rush of hope. I could rebuild my life on the truth, and I was ready to move forward. The aftermath of that night was a whirlwind. Friends were supportive, rallying around me while Jessica was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered reputation. The calls and messages poured in from people who had witnessed the expose, offering their sympathy and help. Everyone wanted to know how I was doing, and I was grateful for their concern. But behind the comfort and camaraderie, I felt an emptiness I couldn't shake. I had lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built a life with. Jessica moved out the next day. She didn't argue or try to fight for a second chance. She simply packed her things, leaving me with a sense of finality. I watched her go, feeling both relief and sorrow battling within me. There was bitterness in her eyes as she walked out the door, but I could also see the fear of losing everything she had worked for. It was an odd mix, and it left me feeling cold. The first few weeks alone were rough. I poured all my energy into work and tried to distract myself from the pain of her absence. I thought I was doing okay until the nights came. That's when the loneliness hit hardest. I'd find myself sitting on the couch, staring at the empty space beside me where she used to be. I missed the life we had built, the small routines and quirks that had made up our marriage. Even the simple act of watching TV together felt like a distant memory. Eventually, I reached out to a therapist after a friend suggested it. Talking to someone about my feelings helped me process everything. In our sessions, I began to understand the emotional roller coaster I was on. There was anger, sadness, and a sense of betrayal that I struggled to reconcile. I realized that I wasn't just angry at Jessica. I was also angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. With each session, the fog began to clear, and I started to regain a sense of purpose. One day, as I was leaving the therapist's office, I received a text from Jessica. It was unexpected, and my heart raced when I saw her name flash on my screen. "Can we talk?" It read. I hesitated, torn between wanting to hear her out and knowing the pain she had caused. After a moment, I responded, "What do you want to talk about?" She suggested we meet at a coffee shop. Part of me wanted to refuse, to keep my distance and move on, but another part of me was curious about what she had to say. I agreed to meet, telling myself it was a chance to gain closure. When I arrived, Jessica was already there, sitting at a small table in the corner. She looked different, more vulnerable, less confident. Her eyes were puffy, and she had dark circles under them. I could see the toll this had taken on her. As I approached, she looked up, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy, but I reminded myself of the hurt she had caused me. "Thanks for meeting me," she said softly. "Let's just get to it, Jessica," I replied, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. "What do you want to say?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry, I messed up. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until everything blew up. I didn't think about the consequences of my actions. I was selfish." I listened, trying to gauge her sincerity. Part of me wanted to believe her. After all, we had shared a life together, but I couldn't forget the betrayal that had shattered my world. "You chose to cheat on me while pretending to be someone you weren't," I said, my voice steady. "You can't just gloss over that with an apology." I know," she insisted, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you. I was confused and got caught up in something I didn't understand. I thought I needed something different, but I lost sight of what really mattered." "So, what now?" I asked, folding my arms across my chest. "You want me to forgive you, pretend this never happened?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know how sorry I am. I've been going to therapy too. I've realized a lot about myself and why I did what I did." I felt a mix of anger and sadness boiling within me. "Do you really think therapy will fix this? You can't erase what you did. You broke our trust." "I know," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just want a chance to prove to you that I can be better. I miss you and I hate what I did. I want to make amends." Her words hung in the air between us, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. Could we rebuild what had been lost? But just as quickly, that hope was crushed under the weight of reality. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I finally said, my voice thick with emotion. "You've turned my life upside down. It's not something I can just forget." "I understand," she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm not asking you to forgive me today. I just want you to know how truly sorry I am." I could see the pain in her eyes, but it didn't erase the bitterness I felt. The truth was, I was torn. Part of me wanted to believe that people could change, that we could move past this. But another part of me screamed that I had to protect myself from further hurt. As we sat there, surrounded by the noise of the coffee shop, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could choose to hold on to the anger and betrayal or take a leap of faith towards healing and forgiveness. It was a difficult decision, and in that moment I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. What would I choose? Would I try to rebuild our marriage, or was it time to finally let go? After that meeting, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. I was deeply conflicted. Part of me wanted to believe Jessica's sincerity, to hope for a future where we could rebuild our relationship. But then another part of me screamed in defiance, reminding me of the betrayal and pain she had caused. Trust, after all, is not easily restored, especially after such a devastating breach. I spent the next few weeks in a haze, oscillating between anger and sadness, hope and despair. I continued my therapy sessions, where I learned the importance of setting boundaries. My therapist encouraged me to take my time, to really think about what I wanted out of this situation. "Forgiveness is a journey," she said. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's okay to prioritize your own healing first. Jessica kept reaching out, sending texts that ranged from remorseful to desperate. Some days she would send heartfelt apologies, and on others, she would express frustration at my hesitance to re-engage with her. The mixed signals only added to my emotional turmoil. I wasn't ready to jump straight back into the role of husband, but I also didn't want to completely shut her out. One evening, after a particularly tough day, I found myself scrolling through our old photos together. There were so many happy memories, trips to the beach, holidays spent with family and quiet, moments at home with Max, our dog. I felt a deep pang of nostalgia. It was hard to reconcile the person in those pictures with the woman who had betrayed me. In the midst of my internal chaos, I decided to take a step back and assess my feelings more thoroughly. I needed to figure out what I truly wanted. So I made a list. On one side, I wrote down everything I missed about Jessica, her laughter, the way she made me feel loved, the little things we shared. On the other side, I wrote the reasons our relationship felt irreparably damaged, her deceit, the way she had shattered my trust, and the emotional turmoil I had been through. Taking a step back allowed me to see what I needed. I realized that while I missed the good parts of our relationship, the hurt was still very fresh, and I wasn't ready to dive back in. I needed to prioritize my own healing first. Eventually, I decided to meet Jessica again, but this time on my terms. I suggested we meet in a neutral space, one of my favorite parks where I often went to clear my head. I arrived early, my heart racing as I replayed our last conversation in my mind. When she arrived, I could see that she was hopeful, her eyes bright with expectation. I steeled myself, ready to set clear boundaries. "Thanks for coming," I said as we settled on a bench beneath a sprawling oak tree. "I've missed you," she started, her voice laced with sincerity. "I've missed some parts of you too," I admitted, but quickly added, "but I'm not ready to dive back into our relationship just yet." Her face fell slightly, but she nodded as if she'd anticipated my response. "I understand. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me immediately. I just want the chance to show you that I can change." "I want that too," I replied, my voice firm. "But I need space. I need time to figure out who I am without you in my life." Jessica looked pained but resolute. "I can respect that. I just want you to know that I'm willing to do the work. I've started going to individual therapy, and I'm trying to understand why I made those choices. I really want to be a better person." "I'm glad to hear that," I said, letting my guard down just a bit. "But actions speak louder than words. If you want to prove you've changed, you need to show me. I can't just take your word for it." "I understand," she replied earnestly. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me how I can support you as you heal." We talked for a while longer, and the conversation felt different from our previous encounters. There was a sense of mutual respect, and I could see that she was genuinely trying to understand my feelings, but I also knew that it wouldn't change everything overnight. "Let's take this slow," I suggested. "I want to rebuild our friendship first. Let's see where that leads, but we need to be honest with each other." "Absolutely," she agreed, her voice steady. As we parted ways that day, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. I wasn't sure what the future held for us, but I did know that I wanted to prioritize my own healing. I had taken the first step in establishing boundaries, and it felt empowering. In the days that followed, I focused on myself. I re-engaged with old hobbies, reconnected with friends, and took Max for long walks in the park. I started journaling, documenting my thoughts and feelings as I navigated this tumultuous time. I reminded myself that healing isn't linear. Some days were better than others. I began to embrace the idea that it was okay to feel hurt, but it was also necessary to allow myself moments of happiness. Jessica and I communicated occasionally, mostly to check in with each other. There were no grand gestures, just simple updates about our lives. I began to see a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other, but only if I was willing to take the risk. And even more importantly, if she continued to show through her actions that she had truly changed. I was still on a journey, one that was far from over. But finally, I felt like I was moving forward, ready to rebuild my life in a way that honored my past while opening the door to a future that was mine to define. Months passed, and as the seasons changed, so did my perspective on life. With each day, I found myself growing stronger and more confident in who I was outside of my relationship with Jessica. I focused on rebuilding the foundations of my own identity, something that I had overlooked in the midst of our marriage. I picked up old hobbies like painting and hiking, activities that brought me joy and a sense of freedom. At the same time, I maintained a cautious but open line of communication with Jessica. We would meet occasionally, grabbing coffee or walking in the park. These meetings were marked by an unspoken agreement that we were both there to heal. She was working on herself, and I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, thoughtful, vulnerable, and eager to take responsibility for her past mistakes. But it was clear to me that rebuilding trust would take time. Our conversations were filled with honesty, and I appreciated her willingness to listen when I expressed my feelings. I often found myself surprised by how much progress we were making, but I remained wary. I wasn't ready to dive back into a romantic relationship, and I made sure to voice that. Let's just continue to take it slow, I would remind her. I need to know that this change is real. One day, as we sat on a park bench, she turned to me with a serious expression. "I want to share something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about the way I treated you and what I've learned through therapy. I know I lost your trust, and I'm committed to doing the work to regain it. I understand if you want to keep things as they are, but I hope that someday we can move forward together." Her honesty struck me. I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, and for the first time in a long time I felt a glimmer of hope. "I appreciate that," I said, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "But I need to see continued progress. It's hard to forget, and I need to protect my heart." "I understand," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm willing to be patient. I just want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." As the weeks turned into months, I continued to witness Jessica's growth. She was open about her mistakes, and she made a consistent effort to work on her self-worth and emotional health. She began volunteering not just at the shelter but also at community events, giving back in ways that reminded me of her kindness before everything had gone wrong. Somewhere along the way, I found my own healing. I embraced the journey, and slowly I began to let go of the anger that had held me hostage for so long. I learned to appreciate the lessons this experience had taught me about love, trust, and the importance of self-care. I discovered that I didn't need a partner to complete me. I could thrive on my own, and that realization was liberating. One evening, we found ourselves sitting on my porch, watching the sun set over the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and for the first time in a long time I felt at peace. Jessica turned to me, her eyes sparkling in the fading light. "Do you think we could ever find our way back to each other?" she asked softly. I took a moment to consider her question. It was a loaded one, filled with uncertainty and hope. "I think we're on the right path," I replied carefully. "But it's going to take time. I'm not ready for a relationship yet, and that's okay. I want to keep building our friendship and see where it leads." She nodded, a smile breaking through the tension on her face. "I can live with that. I just want you to know how much I appreciate you giving me a second chance, even if it's not in the way I originally hoped." "I think we both needed this time apart to grow," I said, my heart feeling lighter. "And who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll find our way back to each other, or maybe we'll discover that we're better off as friends." As we sat there, the warmth of the setting sun enveloping us, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I had exposed the lies, faced the betrayal, and fought hard to reclaim my life. No matter what happened next, I knew that I had taken back my power. I had learned to be true to myself and to build a life based on trust, honesty, and self-respect. In the end, I realized that love isn't just about romance. It's about understanding, growth, and the journey we take through life. Whether Jessica and I would end up as a couple again was uncertain, but I felt a newfound sense of hope. I was ready for whatever the future held, armed with the invaluable lessons from my past. No matter what happened, I was determined to embrace life, learn from my experiences, and forge a path that was uniquely my own.